What is up, everyone? Ninja Nick here. We have round one of the World Championships 2023. We've got Andres Skubal on the left versus Andres Flores on the right. I'm pretty sure there's another tournament this season where there was an Andres versus an Andres, wasn't there, that I commentated? I don't remember. But it looks like some sort of Lost Box deck, probably Giratina if it's got those jet energies versus the Lugia V-Star that's going to have that single strike energy package so that they can use Tyranitar V, do a whole bunch of damage, and some other more techie attackers, usually like the Stone Journer to hit electric type Pokemon for weakness, or the lightning type they call it in the TCG, generally like Miraidon. And then they have usually Evoltal as sort of a Lost Box and Gardevoir counter. It's just nice having some one prize attackers so that you're not forced to go Tyranitar, you know, if it would just get easily one shot. So we have the Lugia player opening up. This is round one of the World Championships. We've got a Squawkabilly start, managed to get that out of the active spot. It looks like using a Jet Energy. That attaches to a bench Pokemon and then allows that Pokemon to go into the active spot. So we are now able to just discard our hand and draw 6 using the Squawkabilly's effect. The ability says that once during your first turn of the game, you can discard your hand, draw 6. So hopefully we got some Archeops into the discard pile that way. Didn't really get to see what he discarded here, but we're also going to play the stadium card Mesa Gosa. Allows you once per turn to flip a coin, and if heads, search your deck for a Pokemon. So we're going to go ahead, get that Lugia V onto the bench. Really important to have that Lugia V in the Lugia V-Star deck. Just because if you were to not get Lugia down, you can't evolve into Lugia V-Star. And without Lugia V-Star, you don't have its V-Star power. Without its V-Star power, you do not have the Star Birth ability. Or, no, Summoning Star. It's Summoning Star. Where you are allowed to put 2 colorless Pokemon from your discard pile into play. So that would be those Archeops, the Stage 1, Stage 2 Pokemon. Stage 2 they are now, because you have the Fossil evolves into the Stage 1, even though in the video game it's just a basic, but whatever. And then it evolves into the Stage 2, but you can skip that using Lugia. So that's the whole point of the deck. Those Archeops do get the special energies out of your deck. Once per turn, you can search your deck for 2 special energy cards and attach it to 1 Pokemon. So if you get 2 Archeops out, you can get up to 4 special energies onto your Pokemon every turn. So pretty powerful, pretty hard to set up. Before rotation, it was a lot easier, but now it doesn't have as much access to good ways to discard or search their Pokemon. So, really important to get those Archeops in the discard pile turn 1, so that then you can evolve into Lugia V-Star turn 2 and get them out. On the other hand here, we have the Lost Box Giratina deck. Looks like it has that Spiritomb on the bench that shuts off Pokemon V abilities, for the basic Pokemon V abilities. So, putting that down there to make sure that there's no Luminion coming out from the Lugia deck, allowing you to bench it to search your deck for a supporter card. Usually has that Professor Burnett that allows you to discard 2 cards from your deck. That's a real easy way to get those Archeops in there. So that would be the point of the Spiritomb being down in this matchup. Looks like we are going to get a whole bunch of Pokemon onto the bench with those Battle VIP Pass. During your first turn, you can play that, search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon, put them directly to your bench. So really great turn 1, really bad every other turn of the game because you can't play it. So good to get those out of the way now, get your whole board set up so that you are able to just get going. We're going to see the Radiant Greninja as well. Using its ability, Concealed Cards, is going to discard 1 energy card from the hand to draw 2 more cards. A really great consistency option in these decks. Another thing we're going to want to see is those flower selectings from those 2 Comfeys that are on the bench. If it's active, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 in the Lost Zone and 1 into your hand. So for those who play games such as Magic, the Lost Zone is like the exiling, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like the banished or removed from play pile, if you're an older school player like myself. Well, not so much anymore, but I was. And we also saw that Colress's Experiment supporter card. So since this player is not the first turn of the game anymore, this is the second turn of the game, but his first turn is going to be able to play a supporter card. The Colress's Experiment allows him to look at the top 5 cards of the deck, choose 3 to put in hand and 2 to put in the Lost Zone. So very similar to the Comfey. The whole point of this Lost Zone deck is to get those cards into the Lost Zone to power up your cards. There is the Mirage Gate that allows you to put 2 basic energies of different colors from your deck onto your Pokemon in play however you'd like, but you can only play that if you have 7 in the Lost Zone. There's Cramorant that can attack for free if you have 4 cards in the Lost Zone, and Giratina's V-Star power allows you to knock out your opponent's active Pokemon, no strings attached, except for the fact that you need 10 cards in the Lost Zone. There's also Sableye with a Lost Mine. If you have 10 cards in the Lost Zone, you can spread 12 damage counters wherever you want. So a very strong deck. And we also see the Jet Energy coming out of this Giratina deck, attaching it to that Giratina on the bench, forcing it active, and it uses its Abyss-seeking attack, again, much like the Comfey, even more so like the Colress's Experiment, allows you to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put 2 in hand, 2 in the Lost Zone. So we've already got 5 cards in the Lost Zone on this first turn of the game for Andresh, so pretty great there. So we're going to have to see Andres get to his Lugia V-Star and Summoning Star out a couple of Archeops, hopefully. Looks like we were able to evolve into the Lugia V-Star, but do we have those Archeops that we need in the discard pile yet? Looks like we did use a Professor's Research that got at least one of them in there, but I think that might be the only one. And this deck usually wants to get the maximum 2 copies out, because if it doesn't, that's half as many energy you can get into play every turn. And each one only accelerates to 1 Pokemon specifically, so even if you were to search the full 2 energy off of the 1, you are locked into putting both of those cards onto just 1 Pokemon. So you can only start powering up 1 Pokemon a turn with 1 Archeops, especially a Pokemon such as the Lugia V-Star does require 4 colorless energies. You can complete that cost with 2 double turbo energies, which says you do 20 less damage, but it is 2 colorless energy on that 1 special energy card. So, but you only play 3 copies, so you can only do that to 1 Lugia, and then that's it. Looks like we are actually choosing to pass the turn. We have not used our Summoning Star yet. We're going to try to spend 1 more turn trying to get another Archeops into the discard pile, and this is a huge, not sure what the word I'm looking for is. It's pretty bad for Andre. But Andresh, this is gonna bug me the whole time. It's really good for him because he gets essentially an extra free turn. He could have potentially been knocked out by a Lugia V-Star on this turn. It does do 220 damage with its Tempest Dive attack. Also, that Path to Peak I just noticed is in play as well. That also shuts off all abilities of Rule Box Pokemon, so that's anything that has a box on the bottom of it that says Rule. So Pokemon EX Rule, Pokemon V Rule, Pokemon V-Star Rule, etc. So all of these 2 prize Pokemon, as well as the Radiant Pokemon like Greninja, are shut off by that Path to the Peak. So I guess that even if he wanted to, he still was not able to use that ability because of the Path to the Peak. So we're just going to see another attached to the Giratina here, getting a grass energy on it. As soon as it gets 1 psychic energy more, it can attack. But it looks like that's it. Just going for the Abyss Seeking yet again. And going right back into the Lugia turn. So we are going to see that Ultra Ball discarding a couple of cards, the Nest Ball and another Lugia V. Already got 2 Lugias in play as well as that Tyranitar. So the next Lugia is just a little bit overkill. So we're just going to go ahead and discard that as opposed to putting it into play where it could potentially get Lost Mind later in the game. So that Archeops is now in hand, but we're going to have to find some sort of way to get it into the discard pile. And it looks like we are going to be choosing to use the Lugia V as that way. It has 1 double turbo energy on it. That's going to fulfill 2 energy cost. And for 1 energy, Read the Wind is its first attack that allows you to discard a card from your hand. And if you do, draw 3 cards. So we're just retreating into that Lugia, discarding that Archeops to put it into the discard pile, and drawing 3. We're also going to be hoping to find a Stadium card out of this one of these turns as well here. So gonna evolve into the Giratina V-Star. We are at 7 cards in the Lost Zone now, so that Mirage Gate card is coming out. We're going to be able to search our deck for 2 basic energies of different colors to put into play. So here you could go 1 energy to the active, and then, or no, you could just do 2 energy to the other Giratina. You could even attach an energy to the Greninja as well, but you got to remember that this Lost Impact attack that the Giratina V-Star does require you to Lost Zone 2 energy cards from your board in order to use it. So it does do 280 damage, enough to one-shot any V Pokemon that is in our Lugia player's deck. Knock it out in 1 hit, but you need a lot of energy in play in order to keep chaining those attacks over and over, and it looks like it's going to be pretty easy now because we get a second Mirage Gate. So we are fully loaded up from hard attachments to the active. We've used 2 Mirage Gates just to the bench Giratina. So it has 4 energy on it now, enough for it to attack in a future turn, but more than likely we're going to be using that Lost Impact to Lost Zone a couple of energies off of the bench instead of off of this active Pokemon. It's going to be really hard for Andres to retaliate here. He would need to get both Archeops out and charge up that Tyranitar V using Single Strike energies. They do allow the Single Strike Pokemon to do an additional 20 damage, and with its second attack for 2 Darkness, 2 Colorless, does do 240. You mill 4 cards from top of your own deck, so you would discard the top 4 cards of your deck. And you would hit big number, because you would likely have 2 to 3 Single Strike energies on your Tyranitar when you're using its attack. Plenty to hit that 280 number. So we're going to see even more cards being played out here. We do get to the Giratina V-Star evolution on the bench as well. And it looks like I like this split that he's going for here. He's going to attack with the Lost Impact. He's going to Lost Zone 1 water energy off of the benched Giratina. It does require specifically grass and psychic energies in order to use its attack. So it's perfectly fine to get rid of the water energy. That can fulfill the colorless attack cost on it of grass, psychic, and colorless, but so does just having a psychic energy, so a little bit better to have that as well as that jet energy. The same idea here. This also allows the Lost Zone to go over 10, so that then on this next turn, if this Giratina in the active does survive, it can use its second attack, the V-Star power Lost Requiem, to just knock out the opponent's active. And then the Giratina comes in from the bench after that and finishes the game with another Lost Impact. So we're going to have to see this Tyranitar put in some work and one-shot this Giratina here. Otherwise, Andres just does not have a way to win the game. But we found the Mesagosa, so we were able to go for the Summoning Star V-Star power, getting the 2 Archeops into play, charging up the Tyranitar with, it looks like, just 2 Single Strike energies and a Jet energy here. But that is enough to fulfill the attack cost, and we will also be able to draw until we have 7 if that Tyranitar does go down in the next turn, as it most likely will because of that gift energy. So a really great way to find maybe a boss's orders, although I don't think you'd really need that. Or maybe just a professor's research to try to just dig for maybe another Tyranitar for the next turn. I think another Tyranitar would be the next best thing to get. It looks like we're also playing the Single Strike Urshifu VMAX in this deck. That is very important for the Duraludon matchup. Duraludon has an ability that says your opponent's Pokemon with special energies can't hit it, can't damage it whatsoever. So, in order to get around that, you use the Single Strike Urshifu, which ignores effects on your opponent's Pokemon, shredding straight through that ability and allowing you to attack anyway. So we're going to see the Single Strike Crush. Unfortunately, mills an Urn of Vitality. Some of these Lugia decks have cut down to just 2 urns. I do like 3 myself at minimum. I do prefer 4, but it's so hard to find the room. And that urn is what allows you to recycle 2 Single Strike energies, putting them back into your deck to just bring back out with Archeops again. So we're really going to have to see if that's going to matter or not. There is another Single Strike energy in hand at least to be able to attach for turn on the next turn, but we are now tied in the prize race here. Both players have taken 2 prize cards. We're going to see this Giratina come up, and it will most likely just Lost Impact this Tyranitar here. And we even see a new Giratina V getting benched. If we could see yet another Mirage Gate, we could see that maybe get powered up as well. It would be nice to combo that with maybe a Super Rod to put those energies that were put in the discard pile from that last Giratina back into the deck to be utilized with the Mirage Gate. So I think our left-hand player is the more likely one to win this matchup at the moment because they are ahead on the prize trade. But if our Lugia player is able to just bring up another Tyranitar and knock this Giratina out, and maybe we miss the Mirage Gate, we might not actually have a follow-up, and then all of a sudden it goes into the favor of the opposite player. So sometimes these games can come to be a little bit close, and it is very important to know that time is a factor here. We have a 33-minute clock left. Games are best 2 of 3 in this format in 50 minutes, and it does take about 25 minutes per game to complete on average. Of course, a single game could take 40 minutes, could take 50 minutes, or it could take 2 minutes because you lose on the first turn. But generally, on average, 25 minutes. So once the 25-minute mark passes, which will be coming up in a few minutes, it's going to be really hard to say that you're going to be able to get 2 more games in order for the player that loses game 1 to be able to make that comeback in the best of 3. So that is a reason why a lot of players were choosing to play decks such as Lugia. Lugia actually being the top day 1 pick for this tournament at the highest percentage of, I believe, 15% of the field was playing Single Strike Lugia. And it's exactly because of the fact that it is one of the more likely decks to just be able to finish a full 3 games. A lot of decks like these Lost Box variants like Gardevoir EX do quite a lot of drawing and searching and recycling and all of that kind of stuff, and it just extends the games so long at times that you cannot sometimes even finish game 2, let alone game 3. Time being an important factor because you can't just sit here playing the game forever. You need to get a certain amount of rounds in, and you only have so many hours in the day. Plus, you can get very fatigued after a certain amount of time as well playing Pokemon. I would know. Been to plenty of regional championships myself, which I do feel a little bit similar to Worlds. Of course, this is much more prestigious, and usually you have to do pretty well at a few regionals over the year in order to get your spot in these Worlds Championships. This year was a particularly difficult year to get in. just because of the fact that there were no local championships at all, no league cups, no league challenges in order to get points towards entering Worlds until the last quarter. Usually they go by quarters, 3 months out of the year, you know. Divide the, or is it 3 month quarters. That's math, Nick. You're a math major. You could do that. There was only one quarter at the very end because we finally were able to come back to normal from post-COVID. So you had to get almost all of your points entirely from regionals. So it looks like we are using Mesagosa flipping heads. Going to use that to search our deck for any one Pokemon. And it's also important that we did get that Mirage Gate on this last turn here, so we were able to Lost Impact for the knockout instead of using our V-Star power. That allows us to use our V-Star power on a future turn, and both of these Giratinas fully loaded up in order to be able to use that V-Star power. So since they could both do that, we just need to see one more evolution into the Giratina V-Star if this active one goes down. And if it doesn't, either way, a Giratina V-Star with a Grass and a Psychic in combination with a Boss's Orders to bring up one of those 2 prize Pokemon on the bench, either the Squawkabilly EX or the Lugia V-Star, will allow our Giratina player to be able to Lost Requiem for the game. So do we have the Boss's Orders? We should have a very massive hand at this point and have gone through most of our deck, and there it is. We are going to use the Boss's Orders, the supporter card that allows you to bring one of your opponent's bench Pokemon into the active spot, much like the Pokemon Catcher of old, which is now unfortunately a coin flip ever since the X and Y base set. Still sad that happened, but it was a necessary thing, allegedly. And we are able to just go ahead and take that game pretty clean, fairly one-sided, especially since on that last turn, I suppose, if Andres was able to get another Tyranitar, retreat into it, get it fully loaded up with those 2 Archeops, and one-shot that active, then that would have made our Giratina player need that 3rd V-Star, and they only play a 3/3 line in the deck. So would they have had it? Would it have been in their last 2 prize cards? Not quite sure that we know for sure, but we're going to have to take it back. As I said, games generally last around 25 minutes, and we are almost 25 minutes into the best of 3 match with about 27-28 minutes left on the clock. So we likely will only see one more complete game. So either this is going to be a 2-0 or more than likely a tie. Tie rules in this game, for those who are not aware, if you do not complete a game, if there's no clearly defined winner by the end of plus 3 turns after time is called, with turn 0 being the turn that it currently is, turn 1 being the next player's turn, back to 2, back to 3, and, you know, it's hard to take 6 prizes when you start a game, like, right before time. So any incomplete game is considered a tie, and you just go by whoever had the most wins. So if each player has 1 win, that is just a tied match. And in day 1 of the World Championships, you're actually dropped from the tournament as soon as you get 6 wins, or go 5-0-3, which is the equivalent of 6 wins, because each tie is 1 match point, each win is 3 match points, so both the same 18 match points. So once you hit 18 match points in this tournament, you're dropped from it. And, I mean, you have to do it. It was only 8 rounds as well. So 5-0-3 would have been your entire tournament. If you go 6-0 the first 6 rounds, you're just dropped out and immediately added to the day 2 tournament, where the top players from each region already auto-qualified for. So like the top 16 from North America, the top 22 from Europe. And that is the actual World Championships. This is really like, you get an invitation for the World Championships, but it's really a last chance qualifier, really, to get into the real World Championships, because they are, in a way, two separate tournaments, and it's a very odd thing. But I think next year they're fixing that and just making it all one big 3-day tournament instead of one 1-day tournament and then one 2-day tournament. It still boggles my mind that it's been like this for so long, but we're going to be fixing it. So looks like we are going first with the Lugia. Of course, we get our Squawkabilly, our Luminion, and looks like that is it. Putting the Luminion down before the opponent gets that Spiritomb onto the bench, just to search the deck for that supporter card. A very good play there by our right player. Noticing that the Spiritomb is not in play, that means you can use those V Pokemon basic abilities. Might as well put it down now to get that supporter card you're going to need for the next turn. And now if Spiritomb or Path to the Peak even come down, that ability is not shut off and you already have that supporter in the hand. The only downside to doing something like that is if your opponent plays a card like Io, which forces you to put your current hand on the bottom of a deck and draw a new one based on your amount of prize cards. But these Lost Box decks generally don't play Io or any type of hand disruption. Sometimes they'll play one Roxanne, where if your opponent has 3 or less prizes, you both shuffle your hands into the deck. The player playing the card draws 6 and the opponent draws 2. So you'll see that usually is a 1-of in most decks. But that can't be played on the first turn of the game for sure. And you know by deck building they're probably not going to be playing Io in the deck list at all. So putting that Luminion down now is the perfect option. Of course, you don't want that to be in play, but you also play Collapse Stadium in the deck, which limits both players' benches to 4, allows you to then discard 1 if you do have 5 Pokemon on the bench, which will most likely be either the Luminion or the Squawkabilly EX. A little scary to have both of those bench sitters there, because all they do is sit there on the bench. But it looks like this player does play Io in the deck. A little bit of an odd inclusion, was not expecting that, but I suppose out of all of the types of Lost Box decks, the one that should most likely be playing the Io would be the Giratina version, in my opinion. So that does make it so that Professor's Research Supporter is no longer in the hand, and the Luminion came down for nothing. So now we have that bench sitter taking up that space with that low HP cost for only 2 prizes. Will be Sableye food later in the game. We did not see Sableye do 1 attack in the previous game. It was taken off the back of Satan himself, Giratina V-Star. But that little gremlin Sableye can do quite a lot of damage. So we might see that come in this time. Also, those are really sick headphones. Those look really nice. I remember when Pokemon first started like streaming regularly, and they had like these really cheap headphones, and it's like the type of headphones I had when I first started doing YouTube, like, because it was like a headset one, so I used the headset. It was like some $20 Amazon headset, and I used the mic on it instead of like this. Oh man, those some of those videos are still on YouTube, I think. I did like delete all of the videos off my channel at one point, or maybe 2 separate points. But pretty much everything from I want to say the past maybe 8 years is still on the channel. But I've been doing it for like 10 now, I suppose. Very much on and off. So what did we just bench there? Was that a Tyranitar? Looks like it was. We are going to be able to now use our Ultra Ball to get rid of the Archeops. That's the best way to get Archeops in the discard pile there. If we also had a Professor's Research in hand, you could always search for the next Archeops and then research to discard that. Research, of course, allows you to discard your hand and draw 7. So looks like we are going to find that Archeops. Do we have a second Ultra Ball or a Professor's Research now? I did not see one in the hand before this turn started, so that'll be very interesting to see. We're also going to need another Mesagosa or the Collapsed Stadium, and looks like we do. We have the Research, so maybe that was the top deck, or I just didn't see it in the hand previously. But we are going to have to find that replacement stadium to make sure that if we do find our Lugia V-Star, we will be able to evolve, use Summoning Star, and then get double Archeops out and start swinging. But it looks like we drew a whole bunch of nothing off of this. We do get the Mesagosa, but we're going to have to flip that heads in order to find ourselves a Pokemon. Do we get it? Yes! Oh, that is huge. So not only did we replace the Path to the Peak, we got that ability to lock out of play, but we also get to use that card to search our deck for Lugia V-Star. And this is another one of the things that I don't like about Lugia in its current form, is that it is just so reliant on coin flips. We used to have a card called Evo Incense, or Evolution Incense, that would allow you to search your deck for an evolution Pokemon. That's usually how you got Archeops in your hand. And then you had not only Ultra Ball, but you also had Quick Ball, which says discard a card, search your deck for a basic Pokemon. And that was another great way to discard that Archeops. But now we have Capturing Aroma, which says flip a coin. If heads, grab an evolution Pokemon. If tails, grab a basic Pokemon. And then we just don't have anything that's really an equivalent of... well, I guess the replacement for Quick Ball is Nest Ball, which just says search your deck for a basic Pokemon, put it directly to the bench. So you don't get that discard, which, funnily enough, in this game, discard is very good. Getting things into the discard pile can help you in a lot of situations. At the very least, if your hand does get Ionoed or judged back into the deck, you can always thin your hand of cards that maybe are only for certain matchups that you're not currently in, or that are just kind of just dead to you right now. Like, I mean, you got a whole big bench right now, right? So if you found maybe another Lugia V, you could always discard that, so that then you don't have to find that again. You're, at this point, maybe you want to win off the power of just the Lugia, the Tyranitar, and maybe both the Archeops, because those are not that bad of attackers either in this matchup. You could always attack into a Sableye with an Archeops. Now, a cool thing that this Lost Box deck can do is it can actually attack with that Radiant Greninja. That's why they are playing those water energies. For 2 water and a colorless, that Radiant Greninja actually does hit 2 Pokemon on your opponent's board for 90. So you can do that to both Archeops, have them take 90, they're both left with 60, and then on the next turn you go in with Lost Mine from Sableye, and you actually do the remaining 6 damage counters to both of them, taking them both out simultaneously, and making it so your opponent has no energy acceleration left. But it looks like a boss's orders came out, and that Lugia was just able to take a one-shot on a Giratina. And Andresh said, welp, nope, I don't want to play this game anymore. I want to make sure that there is enough time to play a full game 3. So since I know that I'm more than likely going to lose this game, probably, you know, maybe his hand wasn't looking too good. He wasn't as proud of his board state. And of course, Andres went ahead in the prize trade. He said, you know what, I don't think this is worth the time investment. I would rather go first in game 3 and be favored to win by being able to take the first prize cards. Of course, Lugia cannot attack on the first turn. It can only start attacking once you use Summoning Star for the most part, unless you really just hard attach multiple turns in a row, which is very hard to do. It takes too long, so yeah. So yeah, Andres has taken had taken 4 prizes at that point, so that would make sense as to why that scoop happened. When you're just in that much of a prize deficit, no point. And now we have a full 16.5 minutes, plus 3 turns potentially as well. So we will more than likely actually see a conclusion to this match, which is great. Now, and again, very important at the World Championships that you do not take ties if you're in day 1. Since you need to get to 6 wins in 8 rounds, every tie you receive is effectively the same thing as a win, unless you end up going exactly 5-0-1. There were people at this World Championships that ended up naturally being at 5-0-1 and tried to double intentionally draw the last 2 rounds in order to make it in. And of course, that is a risk because you could always get down paired to somebody who needs to win. And then still have to play it out anyway, and then your previous ID or tie, again, is effectively the same as a loss, so you could have just played 1 more round and had twice the amount of odds to win a game by playing 1 more game, so very risky, but very rewarding. Now, if your record carried over into day 2 like it does at regionals and internationals, it would be a lot better to just play out all of your rounds and try to win every single one of them, of course. But since your record does not carry over into the second day is effectively its own tournament, it makes a lot more sense to just your record doesn't matter as long as you just at some point hit 18 match points. Because it does completely reset. You start 0-0 and 0 round 1 of day 2. So we do see, looks like the Professor's Research and then an Ultra Ball as well. So we are going to be getting some Archeops and things into the discard pile here. That did not look like a very good first turn from Giratina there, because we just have an energy on a Comfey with 1 flower selecting, putting 1 card into the Lost Zone. There were no Battle VIP passes. There's no bench Pokemon besides that 1 Spiritomb. You're gonna need a lot going forward. Looks like that hand is completely dead as well. I don't even see a Colress's Experiment. That's one of the things that happens when you play Lost Box sometimes, is if you do go first, you cannot play that supporter card. And looks like another hard decision here. Looks like we are going to bench double Giratina. I like that if there was one before, it was held for this turn. You want to put both of them on the bench at the same time so that if the Lugia does end up knocking one out, you still have the other one to potentially evolve into on the next turn. So had he benched one last turn, you could have seen maybe Boss's Orders evolve to Lugia V-Star, Summoning Star, charge up, knock it out, and then this turn he finds another Giratina, you bench it, Boss's Orders again, knock it out. So now that there's 2 in play at the same time, we will see at least one of these live another turn, and as we can see, we are going for the Abyss Seeking yet again. We do get a Battle VIP pass out of here, so usually whenever you see that after turn 1 on any of your Flower Selectings, your Colress's Experiments, or your Abyss Seekings, that is a very easy choice to just immediately put into the Lost Zone. Because it is effectively a blank card that just sits in your hand otherwise. So we do see the Mesagosa getting rid of that Path to the Peak yet again, and flipping heads yet again to search the deck for this Lugia V-Star. And even though this deck can be a little bit inconsistent, we are flipping the right coins for this deck. That's one of the things in Pokemon that I both do and don't like, is that there are a lot of coin flip cards sometimes, so it can just make it a little bit of an RNG fest, which can be a lot of fun at times. But when you're at a tournament of this caliber, do you really want to say you lost a game because you flipped a coin and it was tails? I don't know. So we are going to get the Therapy Energy and Gift Energy from the deck. Already having that V-Guard Energy on it, which reduces the damage output of V Pokemon that attack into it by 30, which means that if we do see a Lost Impact come down on this Lugia V-Star, it will only hit for 250 and the Lugia will live instead of the full 280 because of that V-Guard energy. So, of course, that can always be cleaned up with a Sableye in a future turn, but again, Andresh is just behind. He was not able to do much of anything those first couple of turns, and now Andres is going to be able to hit for the full 220. There are no double turbos on this Lugia, reducing his damage output. So full 220, just going to take an easy 2-prize knockout. Also going to be discarding his own stadium with the additional effect of Tempest Dive, just to make sure his opponent has one less out to getting another Comfey or the Giratina V-Star. Usually this Giratina deck does not actually play things like Ultra Ball at times to be able to search out your Giratina V-Star. You just have to kind of hard draw into it and hope you get it at the right time. So we are going to see Flower Selecting. We're going to switch Flower Selecting. This will put us to 6 cards in the Lost Zone. That is 1 away from being able to use the the Mirage Gate. And I do see we have a Chorus's Experiment. Have we played a supporter yet this turn? Looks like we are going to Super Rod back the Giratina into the deck, as well as the 1 energy. And you can see just the look on Andres's face. He does not look happy. You do not want to lose any games at the World Championships, and especially not round 1. Although, I would say there is an argument to saying that if you do lose the first 1 to 2 rounds, you do get put into the lower skill bracket. I mean, everybody in the World Championships is at least a solid player, to say the very least. Sometimes you can just go to a whole bunch of events and get what I like to call pity points, where, you know, you get top 256 at like a 1,000-person tournament. Not too hard to accomplish, but you do that enough times by going to every single event, and you just kind of fall into an invitation to the World Championship. So if you lose round 1 at Worlds, maybe you're going to play one of those players. I know I was one of them in 2019, losing my first round to a guy I know who lives 3 hours away from me. You'll love to see it. I did almost make the comeback, but not quite. I was a little unfortunate. I can't remember if I got to 4 or 5 wins before it died out. I think I ended 5-4 if I remember correctly. So yeah, I think I ended up, was I like 4-4 at one point, and then I just decided to play my last round and won. I think that's what happened. It's hard to remember all these tournaments when you've been to so many over so many different years. So we just see the Cramorant doing the Spit Innocently attack. My least favorite attack name in the game, but normally costs 2 waters and a colorless, but I don't know if I've ever seen somebody attack with Cramorant's attack without using its ability, which says when you have 4 more cards in the Lost Zone, you attack for free. Actually, no, I did power up a Cram once against Durant, but I did have 4 cards in the Lost Zone the whole time, and I don't remember if there was double water on it. I think there was at least 1, but yeah. Durant's a funny deck. It just tries to mill out your opponent. So we see the double turbo energy attachment to that benched Tyranitar. That does reduce the damage output of the Tyranitar by 20, so it's only doing 220 at most with its second attack, Single Strike Crush, but all of those Single Strike energies will add to it as well. But that does make it a little bit harder to be able to take a one-shot on something like the Giratina V-Star. We also see the Collapse Stadium coming out to discard the Lugia V from play. Was it a V or V-Star? I missed it, but it was a Lugia that is leaving play. Or was it the Squawk? I think it was a Lugia. I missed it. I'm mostly paying attention. But making sure that there is one less 2-prizer in play for our Giratina to eat alive. And we're going for another research. Definitely one of the best supporter cards in the game. And he puts an Archeops down and flips a heads. Okay. Okay, he meant to play the Capturing Aroma, but he put the Archeops down. Okay, so there's probably a judge ruling here. So he meant to play the Capturing Aroma, but he accidentally put the Archeops down instead, flipped the coin, and then looked at his deck. So technically speaking, it could have been argued that he looked through his deck illegally because the card he put down was the Archeops. He didn't actually play a Capturing Aroma. But it's just such an easy fix because he did have the Capturing Aroma in hand that it looks like there was no penalty at all for that. Maybe just a warning. But I would say at a, you know, it's weird. In Pokemon, the severity of mistakes and misplays and things like that doesn't scale with your tournament. So it's not like lax at a challenge and then more aggressive at cups and then regionals and then internationals and then the world championships, which I really feel like it should be. Maybe it should be a slap on a wrist at a challenge. Something like that could be like a DPL in like a League Cup and a regional, and then just game losses at, you know, something higher than that if you wanted to be super strict about it. But probably like a caution at a challenge, a warning at a cup, DPL at a regional, and an internet, something like that. I don't know. But that's just like ideas that I have floating in my head, is that things like that should scale. Because this is the World Championships. You are supposed to be the best of the best. You want to make sure you are not making any mistakes at all during a tournament like this. Whether they are just accidents or not. Andres there, staring into Andre's soul. Yeah, if there was a prize penalty for that, these little prize pips here at the top would light up red for one of the players. So, saying that they would have to take 2 less prize cards to win the game. So that we'd have these 2 lit up red. So obviously, that was probably just either a caution or a warning. Basically saying, oops, you made a mistake, don't do it again. No actual penalty. Unless he were to do that multiple times over the course of the same tournament. But we're going to use our Archeops to fully load up this Tyranitar. And the double turbo energy and one of the single strike energies do cancel each other out. And the other 2 add another 40. So that is 280 exactly and is able to take the knockout on that Giratina V-Star. Going down to 1 prize remaining. And of course here Andres is still playing the game because maybe if he just gets really lucky, he can take those last 4 prize cards before his opponent takes the last 1. There's no reason to scoop at this point because there is no game 4. It's just best of 3, and this is game 3. So go ahead and try your best here and don't just concede. He could always try to play it to a tie as well if this game doesn't finish. But again, a tie doesn't really do you any good at day 1 of the World Championships. So we are going to Mirage Gate, bench Sableye, and play Roxanne. So this is actually really great here. So that's that Roxanne card I was talking about before. Since Andres has taken at least 3 prize cards over the course of the game, he now shuffles in and draws 2 cards. And Andres here is going to shuffle in and draw a full 6. A really great new hand here. So try to limit the options of your opponent as best as you can. I think an Ino might have been just a little bit better here because he would have shuffled his current hand, put it on the bottom, and then drawn 1 card, which is equal to his prize cards. But of course, you would only draw 4 yourself instead of the 6. So And it looks like he just reaches over, extends the hand, and concedes the game, knowing that there is no way that he is able to take this game at all. And of course, we're just going to zoom in on his private messages. Good job, TPCI. Wow. Yeah, so unfortunate. He basically just bricked games 2 and 3. Is all that I got to say about that. So as always, guys, do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe. It is really important for that YouTube algorithm. And we will see you guys next time with round 2 of the World Championships.